Video games were created in the 1950s by a physicist named William Higginbotham. Since then, they have developed and grown into a worldwide phenomenon. Our culture has been influenced by video games for more than 30 years, starting with the classic games like Pong in 1972 and Space Invaders in 1978, which kick-started a cultural revolution. Video games have become a large part of culture all over the world, especially in South Korea. South Korea is one of the most wired countries on the planet. However, with this technology comes consequences. South Korea is grappling with a growing number of digital natives who don't know how to live an analog life. Surveys have suggested that about 10% of Korean teenagers are addicted to video games and the internet. Video game addiction is described as an impulse control disorder, which does not involve use of an intoxicating drug and is very similar to pathological gambling. It is the compulsive and excessive use of computer games and video games. Those suffering from video game addiction may use the internet to access massively multiplayer online role-playing games and multi-user domain games. Similar to other addictions, individuals suffering from video game addiction use a virtual fantasy world to connect with real people through the internet as a substitution for real-life human connection, which they are unable to achieve. Statistics show that men and boys are more likely to become addicted to video games versus women and girls. Recent research has found that nearly 1 in 10 youth gamers can be classified as pathological gamers or addicted to video gaming. Video game addiction in South Korea has become so bad that the government has tried to counter it through measures such as the Cinderella Law, which denies access after midnight to gamers younger than 16, although many have figured out ways to get around it.
Internet addiction is said to affect 2 million South Koreans and half of its entire teenage population. In 2011, Congresswoman Shin Wee-jin passed a law known as the Cinderella Act, putting internet addiction in the same category as drugs and alcohol, and preventing children under the age of 16 from playing online games after midnight.
사실 중독의 원인은 술도 될 수 있고 도박도 될 수 있습니다. 물론 인터넷 게임도 가능합니다.
There are also multiple facilities in South Korea that are focused on the recovery for video game addicts. There are camps that offer 3 to 4 week courses of stress reduction classes and wholesome activities that include hiking, rock climbing, and learning to play the guitar. HBO produced a documentary called Love Child, which showed the extremes of video game addiction. It documents a Korean couple who were arrested for neglecting and ultimately starving their 3-month-old to death in 2010. The two had spent more than 6 hours a day playing an online fantasy game, and the incident provoked nationwide outrage in Korea, especially when it became known that the couple was preoccupied with nurturing a virtual child. In America, although not as severe as South Korea, video game addiction is very much prevalent. Researcher Douglas Gentile of Iowa State University found that 8.5% of American youths ages 8 to 18 who play video games show multiple signs of behavioral addiction. What he found, he said, was that children who were considered pathological gamers did worse in school, had trouble paying attention in class, and reported feeling addicted. They were twice as likely to report attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. He did a study that found that 88% of the nation's children ages 8 to 18 play video games. With 45 million children of that age in the country, the study would suggest that more than 3 million are addicted or at least have problems of the magnitude that call for help. In 2013, the Internet Gaming Disorder was placed in the U.S. Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders as a diagnosis that needs more research before it's fully accepted. However, the diagnosis is already recognized in China, South Korea, and Japan, and there is an increasing concern it's afflicting many American children and teens. Although video games can have severe consequences when overplayed, they also provide some benefits in culture. This video shows how the video game FIFA played a role in changing the real game of soccer in America.
Playing FIFA, I feel, is really important to anybody who wants to get into soccer.
I think the big thing was that FIFA gave you access to soccer, which didn't really exist in the US, kind of in the early 2000s.
You can only watch games on the weekends. You have to, make your own during the week.
Games bring people together. Video game play is an increasingly social activity. 56% of the most frequent gamers play with others, and 54% play online in multiplayer mode at least weekly. About half of the most frequent game players say that video games help them connect with friends and family. Players are also able to connect with people across the world and find common interests through online games. They can come together to participate in pro leagues and global competitions. The earliest known video game competition surprisingly took place in America in October in 1972 at Stanford University for the game Space War. Since then, competitions have grown immensely in popularity. In 2013, the League of Legends World Championship was held in a sold-out Staples Center, and the next year, the 2014 League of Legends World Championship was held in Seoul, South Korea, and had over 40,000 fans in attendance. These competitions bring in fans and players from all over the world and connect the different gaming cultures of different countries such as America and South Korea.